I still can't believe it happened. After a decade of sacrificing my youth, my dreams, and every last ounce of my energy to care for my aging parents, my dad looked me dead in the eye and handed over the keys to the family home, family business, and full power of attorney to my sister, Lina. Lina, who had just waltzed back into our lives a week ago after disappearing for 10 years without a trace. I remember the weight of the house keys in my hand, the power of attorney documents, everything I had worked for, everything I had bled for, and I just set them down on the polished mahogany table. "Congrats, Lina," I said, my voice as steady as I could make it, even as my world crumbled. My mom, bless her heart, but sometimes I think she lives on another planet, just nodded, a serene smile on her face, and added, "She deserves it, deserves it." Tell me, would you have done what I did next, or am I truly the monster they now claim I am? Let me take you back to the beginning. My name is Alex, and I'm the eldest of 2 children. From the moment I could walk, I was the responsible one, the one who looked after Lina, even though she was only 2 years younger. Lina was always the free spirit, the one who chafed under rules, the one who dreamt of adventures beyond our small town life. I, on the other hand, found comfort in routine, in duty, in making sure everything ran smoothly. Our parents were loving, but traditional. My dad, a self-made man who built a successful construction business from the ground up, believed in hard work and loyalty. My mom, a homemaker, believed in family above all else. When I was 18 and Lina 16, our lives took an unexpected turn. My dad, still in his early 50s, suffered a severe stroke. It wasn't fatal, but it left him partially paralyzed and unable to manage the business or even care for himself completely. It was devastating. I had just gotten into my dream university, a prestigious engineering program hundreds of miles away. Lina was planning her gap year, hoping to travel the world, but with Dad's stroke, everything changed. My mom, who had always relied on Dad for everything, was overwhelmed. The business was floundering, medical bills were piling up, and Dad needed constant care. Without a second thought, I deferred my university acceptance. It just felt like the right thing to do. Someone had to step up. Lina, though, saw things differently. She argued with me, with our parents, saying that her life shouldn't be put on hold, that we were all young and had futures. I remember her standing in the living room, her backpack already packed, tears streaming down her face, saying, "This isn't fair, Alex. We can't let Dad's illness ruin our lives." I tried to reason with her, to explain that family came first, that we needed to support each other. But her mind was made up. A week after Dad's stroke, Lina left. She said she needed to find herself, that she'd be back when she could truly help. We didn't hear from her for months, then years. Occasional postcards, sometimes a brief email, but never a phone call, never a visit. My parents were heartbroken, but I tried to pick up the pieces. For 10 years, I became everything. I took over the family construction business. It was a steep learning curve. I spent countless nights poring over blueprints, learning about contracts, managing crews, and dealing with suppliers. I worked 12-hour days, often 6 or 7 days a week, to keep it afloat. And I did more than just keep it afloat, I made it thrive. I modernized operations, diversified our services, and built up a strong reputation in the community. The business not only supported our family, but also paid for Dad's extensive medical care, physical therapy, and the modifications we had to make to the house to accommodate his needs. On top of that, I became my mom's rock. She relied on me for emotional support, for financial decisions, and for helping care for Dad. I'd come home from a grueling day at work, cook dinner, help Dad with his exercises, manage his medications, and then spend hours listening to Mom's worries. My social life dwindled to nothing. Relationships became impossible. I watched my friends move on, get married, have children, pursue their careers, while I was stuck in a perpetual state of caregiving and working. I resented it sometimes deeply, but I never let it show. I told myself it was my duty, my responsibility as the elder son, the one who stayed. My parents, despite their sadness over Lina, often praised me, telling me how proud they were, how I was their rock, their savior. Those words, I realize now, were just words. About a year ago, Dad's health took a turn for the worse. He became more frail, his memory started to falter, and he needed even more intensive care. The stress on Mom and me was immense. I was working almost 24/7. The doctors gently suggested we start thinking about end-of-life planning, about who would manage his affairs if he became completely incapacitated. It was a heavy conversation, one that brought up the issue of the power of attorney. My parents, without hesitation, agreed that I should have it. I had been managing everything anyway. We even had the papers drawn up, though we hadn't signed them yet. And then a week ago, Lina showed up. She just appeared on our doorstep, looking radiant, tanned, and carrying a single backpack, as if she'd just returned from a short vacation, not a decade-long disappearance. There were tears, hugs, and a lot of emotional fanfare from Mom, who seemed to instantly forget the 10 years of silence and worry. Dad, whose memory was patchy, seemed confused at first, but then a flicker of recognition and a weak smile. Lina told us stories of her travels, of living in various countries, working odd jobs, finding herself. She spoke of spiritual awakenings and artistic endeavors, all while I sat there listening, feeling a strange mix of relief, resentment, and a profound sense of injustice. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Here I was, having carried the weight of my family on my shoulders for a decade, rebuilding a business, caring for ailing parents, sacrificing my own life entirely. And then Lina, who abandoned us, who chose her freedom over family, waltzes back in, and within a week, she's being hailed as the returning hero. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have accepted it? Would you have fought? Or would you have walked away? I genuinely want to know what you think. The day Lina returned, things changed subtly, but surely. Mom was constantly fussing over her, making her favorite meals, listening to her travel stories with rapt attention. Dad, in his clearer moments, seemed to light up when Lina was around. He remembered snippets of her childhood, asked her about places she'd visited. I tried to be happy for them, for the brief respite from the constant worry, but a knot of bitterness was forming in my stomach. Then came the conversation with my parents just 3 days after Lina's return. They called me into the living room, Lina already seated comfortably on the sofa. My dad, with a clarity I hadn't seen in months, began. He spoke of the importance of family, of keeping the legacy alive, of wanting to ensure his children were cared for. My heart swelled, thinking he was finally going to acknowledge my years of dedication. Then he turned to Lina. "Lina," he said, his voice softer than I'd heard it in years, "your mother and I have been talking. You've been gone for a long time, and we miss you. We want you to stay, to truly come home." Lina smiled, a radiant, almost angelic smile. "Of course, Dad. I want to be here for you and Mom." My dad then looked at me, a strange, almost apologetic look in his eyes. "Alex, you've done so much, more than we could ever ask for. But we feel like Lina needs this more. She needs a fresh start, a place to belong. And you're so strong, so capable. You'll always be fine on your own." My mom chimed in, "Yes, Alex, you've always been so independent. Lina, she's always needed a little more guidance, a little more foundation. This will be good for her." That's when it hit me. They weren't talking about a fresh start for Lina. They were talking about my fresh start, a permanent one, away from everything I had built. My dad picked up a folder from the coffee table. Inside were newly drawn up documents, power of attorney, assigning Lina as the sole decision maker for their medical and financial affairs. A will leaving the house and the business entirely to Lina. My 10 years, my sacrifices, my blood, sweat, and tears rendered utterly meaningless. My dad handed them to Lina. "These are for you, sweetheart. The house keys too. It's all yours now." Lina took them, her eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. "Thank you, Dad, Mom. This means so much." I stood there, rooted to the spot, a silent scream building in my chest. My mom, as if oblivious to the devastation she had just wrought, turned to me. "Alex, you'll still be around, right, to help Lina get settled in the business, show her the ropes." That was the breaking point, the sheer audacity, the complete disregard for my feelings, my decade of unwavering loyalty. I looked at the documents in Lina's hands, then at the house keys. The weight of them, even from a distance, felt like a lead ball in my stomach. I walked over, my movements deliberate, and without a word, I set down my copy of the power of attorney documents I had been holding, the ones with my name on them. Then, with an almost exaggerated slowness, I took the spare set of house keys from my pocket, the ones I had used for 10 years, and placed them neatly beside the documents on the table. My voice, when it came, was a whisper, but it carried the force of a hurricane. "Congrats, Lina." My mom, with that infuriatingly serene smile, nodded. "She deserves it." I didn't argue, I didn't shout, I didn't even shed a tear in front of them. I just nodded, a slight, almost imperceptible nod. "I understand," I said, though my understanding was a venomous mix of betrayal and cold resolve. I then turned and walked out of the living room, out of that house, leaving them with their celebratory moment. My mind was racing, a kaleidoscope of emotions swirling within me. The pain was immense, but beneath it, a plan was meticulously forming. I drove to my office, the office I had built, the business I had saved. The first thing I did was call my lawyer. I explained the situation calmly, methodically. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Sarah, who had seen me through many business challenges, listened intently. "Alex," she said, her voice laced with concern, "are you sure about this?" I was sure, more sure than I had ever been in my life. I had poured my heart and soul into that business. It was mine. Legally, yes, it was the family business. But I had expanded it, innovated it, made it profitable in ways my dad never even dreamed of. And my name was on the operational accounts, the contracts, everything. The next morning, I arrived at the office early. Lina, blissfully unaware, arrived a little later, brimming with a newfound enthusiasm. She started asking me questions about the projects, about the staff, eager to learn the ropes, as Mom had suggested. I answered her patiently, guiding her through the initial paperwork, showing her the basics. She seemed bright, a quick learner, which only solidified my resolve. I wanted her to see, to truly understand what she was about to lose. Around midday, I called a mandatory staff meeting. Everyone gathered, including Lina, who was beaming, probably imagining her new role as the boss. I stood at the head of the conference table, looking at the faces of the people I had worked with for years, the people who had helped me build this business. "I have an announcement," I began, my voice clear and steady. "As you know, my sister Lina has returned, and my parents have decided that she will be taking over the family business." A murmur went through the room. Some looked surprised, others exchanged uneasy glances. I continued, "However, for the past 10 years, this business has operated under my leadership. I built it up, expanded it, and secured its future, and while it might have started as a family business, it has, for all intents and purposes, become my business." I then pulled out a pre-written letter. Effective immediately, I am resigning from my position as CEO and owner of Business Name. Furthermore, I am initiating the process to formally dissolve the current company structure and re-establish a new company under my sole ownership. The room erupted. Whispers turned into shocked gasps. Lina's face, which had been glowing just moments before, slowly drained of color. "What do you mean, Alex?" she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "You can't just dissolve it." I looked at her, my eyes cold. "Legally, I can. All the current contracts, the client relationships I've cultivated, the intellectual property, the operational assets, they are all tied to my management and my agreements. Original family business as it was when I took over was essentially a shell when Dad got sick. I rebuilt it. I diversified. I secured the loans, signed the contracts, forged the partnerships. Without me, there's not much left that's legally hers, beyond a name and some outdated equipment. I looked at the employees. To those of you who have worked with me, who believe in my vision, I invite you to join my new venture. We will be starting fresh with new energy and even greater ambition. Over half the staff, including all the key managers and skilled workers, immediately pledged their loyalty to me. They knew my work ethic, my vision, and my fairness. They knew Lina, if at all, as the sister who disappeared. Later that afternoon, after the meeting had dispersed and the initial shock began to settle, I handed Lina a sealed envelope. "This is for you," I said, a flicker of something close to triumph in my voice. She opened it, her hands trembling. Inside was a legal document, a formal notification of my resignation, the dissolution of the existing business entity, and a detailed list of all the assets, contracts, and clients that would be transferring to my new company. It also contained a letter from my lawyer explaining the legal implications, making it abundantly clear that the family business, as she knew it, the one my parents had so generously bestowed upon her, was effectively a husk, a shell of its former self. There was nothing for her to inherit, nothing for her to run, because everything of value was legally tied to me. When she finally understood, the blood rushed from her face. Her eyes, which had been so bright just hours before, filled with a mixture of disbelief, rage, and dawning horror. She crumpled the letter in her hand, her face contorting. You can't do this, Alex. This is ours. This is the family business. How could you?" she screamed, her voice cracking. "My parents gave this to me. I just watched her, a hollow feeling in my chest that was slowly being replaced by a grim satisfaction. Your parents gave you something that was already mine, Lina. They gave you a title, but they didn't give you the years of sacrifice, the sleepless nights, the relentless effort. They didn't give you the relationships I built, the trust I earned, or the knowledge I gained, and those things, my dear sister, are not transferable with a simple signature on a piece of paper," she exploded. Her face turned crimson, tears streaming down her face, not of sadness, but of pure, unadulterated fury. She started shouting, calling me selfish, vindictive, a heartless monster. She accused me of destroying the family, of ruining her life, of betraying our parents. It was a cacophony of accusations, a torrent of bitter words, but I just stood there, letting it wash over me. I had heard worse from myself in the dark hours of my own resentment. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Lina immediately ran to our parents, tears and accusations flowing freely. My mom, of course, was devastated. She called me, sobbing, pleading with me to reconsider, to not destroy the family. My dad, in his moments of clarity, seemed confused, but even he expressed disappointment, saying I was being cruel, that Lina deserved a chance. They called me ungrateful, selfish, cold. But I had made my decision. I explained it to them, calmly, rationally, as many times as they called. I told them that for 10 years I had been the family, the rock, the provider, the caregiver. And when it came time to acknowledge that, to secure my future after my decade of sacrifice, they chose the prodigal daughter. They chose someone who abandoned them over someone who gave them everything. My actions, I explained, were not about malice, but about self-preservation, about finally acknowledging my own worth, my own contributions when no one else would. I wasn't destroying the family. I was simply removing myself from a situation where my sacrifices were unappreciated and unrewarded. Lina ended up with nothing. The family business, as my parents envisioned it, crumbled. She tried to keep it going, to hire new people, but without the experienced staff, without the established client base, without my industry connections and expertise, it was doomed. It eventually folded within a few months. She tried to find work, but her decade-long absence from the professional world and her sudden return to a disgraced family name made it difficult. She ended up taking a low-paying job in another town, struggling to make ends meet. My parents were left with the reality of their choices. They had Lina back, but she was bitter, resentful, and constantly reminding them of what I had taken from her. Their dreams of her taking over the business and caring for them in their old age vanished. I, on the other hand, thrived. My new company flourished, quickly surpassing the old one. Most of my former clients followed me, and my reputation only grew stronger. I finally had the financial stability and, more importantly, the freedom to build a life for myself. I still visit my parents, though less frequently, and our interactions are strained. They still haven't truly forgiven me, and I haven't fully forgiven them. They see me as the villain and Lina as the victim. Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh, if there was another way. But then I remember the decade of relentless work, the dreams deferred, the quiet desperation, and the sting of their words, "She deserves it." My parents made their choice. And I made mine. I put myself first, finally, after 10 years of putting everyone else first. And while it cost me the idealized version of my family, it gave me back my life. So, tell me, was I truly wrong for what I did? Like this video if you were on my side, and subscribe for more stories like this. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I'll see you all in the next story.